We are now joined by our friend, I should say Happy New Year to in studio, Brother Mike Dennis. How you doing, man?
Happy New Year, Doc. I'm doing great.
Excellent. It's been good since I've seen you. I've been to your website, and I see you've been around doing some things that we're going to talk about, and we are going to make reference to the event that you're doing tonight. I want to give some shouts to my guests who are on the line. Let me see if we have them with us. Guest Tasha Hill, are you with us?
I am. Hello.
Hey, sister. Welcome to Philadelphia. How you doing?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to honored to be on the line.
Excellent. Rumor has it you're a big film, have a lot of interest in movies?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. And we are also joined by Sister, pronounce your first name for the millionth time for me.
It's okay. Anasuya.
Anasuya.
Like hallelujah.
Gotcha. The ISIS part I had, but Anasuya, I got it. And we've corresponded a little bit via email. You are, I can already tell you have street cred. You have, you're a huge film buff.
I am. I eat, sleep, drink film. I love it.
Excellent. Well, when I do shows like this, to my left, although this is radio, I have the guru of black films beside me, the professor himself, Mike Dennis. Mike, say hi to the ladies.
Hey, ladies. How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Mike's a bad man, so you might not hear me talk much because Mike got it handled all by himself. So one of the things we want to start off with, some people have said, and I just wonder, ladies, from your perspectives, some people have called 2013 the year of black films, African American films, us in films, us directing films. I'm just wondering if, I'll start with you, Tasha. Did you see it that way, that this was a great exemplary year for African American films, or us in films, or us directing films?
I would say half and half. It was really refreshing to see a lot more African Americans on screen. But my largest concern was positive roles. I didn't see a lot of victorious or positive roles. But it was nice to actually see African Americans on the big screen.
Excellent. And what for you, before we go to the dean of black films? That's I got all kinds of nicknames for Mike Dennis, but this man knows that. What about for yourself? What did it feel like for you, Anasuya, that it was a particularly great year to be going to the theater and checking out these films?
I'd actually use the word great in the sense that there were films to go to. Hallelujah. The fact that we could go and see so many variations of us. For the first time first time in a long time, I felt that our voices, a wide variety of our voices were there. I mean, at one time, in the 70s, we had the black exploitation movies, which were a genre of films. And inside of that, we had gems like Sounder and Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman and Nothing But a Man, my absolute favorite. But most of the other films were a specific type of film, and so it's been a while since we've had diversity. And though there were not all redeeming films, there were quite a few of those. And those that were not, I don't know. For me, it was great because there was such a wide variety of voices being heard and many groups represented that have not been represented, mainly the black middle class or the professional class. That has been missing in film for a while. So, yeah, for me, I call it great.
Excellent. And for you, this is what Mike does for a living. Mike, what about just as an overview for yourself? Great year for black films?
No, it's definitely a landmark year. I know there's an article at the end of the year, NPR listed 11 films coming out. Now, these are by major studios that got a wide release, or wide enough release. There are 11 African-American films, films by African-American directors that came out last year. And I would probably double that number if you include the limited release films, like the things that came out through Affirm, like Big Words and Better Must Come, and some other things that had like limited runs like...
I Will Follow. How about that?
Oh, that's 2011, but yeah, absolutely, that's an Affirm film. But So yeah, it's definitely a landmark thing. There are a lot of things that are intersecting right now to make a perfect storm for our stories to be told.
Do you think, Mike, and I'm asking the others this, and then we're going to go through some of my lists, some of your lists, some of which intersect. I think Mike's named 2 films that I've never heard of already, but that's he covers this stuff really well. I'm a little reluctant sometimes to kind of put things out as a renaissance or a burgeoning, because we have a good year at something. For me, that's not like a new age, because a new age suggests to me, at least in art, that we should have several years over a period of time, not just a good year. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think that the key to it continuing, not becoming a fad or a trend, sort of like we've seen this before. We've seen, like the ladies mentioned, in the 70s is the blaxploitation era. In the early 90s, when Boys in the Hood came out, black film was a novelty to Hollywood studios, and they looked at it as a way to cash in. But that wave, I mean, and if you had asked people, like if you took a snapshot of that time, I think there were a lot of people that felt that finally black folks were enfranchised into this Hollywood system, and that it was going to continue. It was not going to end. But yes, there was an end. It was a cycle, and you saw that also at the beginning of the 2000s when like the Kings of Comedy all broke into films at the same time. So there were a lot of black films being made then. So I've been asking this question to a lot of people over the last year. We've been doing the Black Film Now project. And, the key to it continuing is twofold. One, movies have to be really good. The movies have to, we can't just cash in on the trend and make sure that the films we just make more of them. They have to be really good. And I think this past year, the films for the most part were really good. And then the second part of that equation is that audiences need to support them where it matters. They can't wait for the Netflix. They can't wait for the BET screening. They have to go support these movies where their dollars count to something. They count as a vote in the box office.
Excellent. We're going to take a brief break there. Listeners, you're in for a real treat. We're about to dissect or intersect some of these films, at least some of the ones that I've captured, and some of my other guests. Stay close. We're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back.
Skies above in flaming color. Without love, there's so much dollar, a false creation, an imitation of life.
And here's your latest weather news. Right now, it's very foggy. Drivers need to be careful out there. At 36 degrees, cloudy with the occasional rain showers this evening. Temperatures at a low of 37. Rain showers in the morning will evolve into a more steady rain in the afternoon. Tomorrow, temperature at a high of 61 degrees. My grandmother used to say this is the end of the world. Grandma, I love you. 61 degrees tomorrow. Cloudy and damp with rain early, then becoming partially cloudy. Temperature at a low of 37 degrees, 90% chance of rain, rainfall about a half an inch. On Sunday, we have sunshine, highs in the upper 40s, lows in the low 30s. I'm Dr. Richard M. Cooper. The program is The Caramoo. You are listening strong, 900 AM, on air, online, and in the community. We snuck a classic song in there as our brief, succinct way of paying homage to Juanita Moore, who died at 99. She was the black actress in one of the versions of The Imitation of Life. Classic film. We had to kick her some shouts.
Best version.
Yeah, and we did that by when I found this tune, I mistakenly thought that was the great, drum roll,
Nat King Cole?
Nat King Cole, but it is not. It is the great Earl Grant. So I did a little history on Brother Earl Grant, contemporary of Nat King Cole, sounds just like him. So I wanted to make sure I got it right when I came onto the airwaves. If you just joined us, we are honored, excited, delighted to talk about films. We have some film lovers on the line, Tasha Hill, Anasuya Isis, and of course, Philly's own Mike Dennis. I'm going to start off with my list. We'll work in the year. And I have them in no order, just films, some of which I've seen, some of which I haven't. Let us start with the film, ladies, if you're ready. Let us go to, and Mike and I had talked about this one early last season, Fruitvale Station. Fruitvale Station would be, for me, I struggle with this film, although I found it to be well done. I struggle sometimes when films are so well done, when they feel like a documentary, in some ways they still hurt. Anasuya, your thoughts about the film?
I was completely floored by the power that he was able to capture in a 24-hour time period. Just from a storytelling point of view alone, to be able to capture what felt like to me the entire life of this young man in a 24-hour window was just brilliant. And it hurt so much because it was true. I was devastated, even though I knew all about Oscar Grant way before the film got made. Just watching the blooming of the bud starting to bloom and then be cut off.
Yeah, it was tough for me. And the good thing is that with Mike Dennis being here, Mike oftentimes has been directly involved with the screenings here in the city, and he has direct connections. Your thought about this one as well?
Absolutely. No, I think it's one of the most powerful debut features that we've seen in a while. It's definitely the kind of film that years from now we're going to look back and say this was the birth of some really great talent. Michael B. Jordan, who's been around for a decade. He was on The Wire, as a youth, but this was his coming out party, and Ryan Coogler, he's in his early 20s, and he's got the deal to make the next Rocky sequel, or spinoff.
Really?
So he's on his way, and they've been winning awards straight through. I hope that when the Oscar nominations come around, they get some recognition, because it's definitely up there. It's Oscar caliber work.
Excellent. What about for you as well, Tasha? For me, as I mentioned, when I go to see these, while enjoyable, there's a level of pain that's sometimes difficult for me to move beyond.
Exactly, it is. It's what I've just learned to do is when I'm watching these type of films, I just try to remember. You have to kind of disassociate yourself with a lot of if there's emotion there or whatever. There's several other films that I've found a little difficult to watch, or a little, because, like you said, they're so, they're just so real, or maybe just so accurate, or just on point. But this was a good one.
Yeah, I had read about the film that even when you look at some of the scenes, and even the way some of the footage was shot, and then of course when it escalates to the scene, where the main character, ultimately is killed, that they studied the cell phone angles actually, used, that were actually recorded, in the real live event, and they either used or copied the angles and so on. And again, in so many ways, it paralleled reality too much. And then when you look at the very end of the film, they actually dub in, real people and real live events, kind of in the postscript. And for me, so while a wonderful film, it was difficult. Mike?
No, absolutely. Again, it's a brilliant screenplay. One of the most touching things about it is that Ryan is pretty much exactly the same age that Oscar Grant would have been had he lived. So it's sort of telling the story from the point of view of the perspective of a person who is of that life, and that's what gives the film its immediacy and its emotional truth, I think, is that, every frame of the film, it's told from a point of view of, that could be me.
Yeah. I think.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and just say which lady I'm talking to, because your voices I'm still catching.
Sorry. So this is Tasha.
Mm-hmm.
I do, like I said, films with that just spark that emotion. You got to know, how to, how to detach yourself from it. But I must say that, like, the producers of these type of films, there's much respect to them, because this is, what we need to see is truth. It's kind of half and half. Again, I like reality. I like things that show, like, definite. I don't know. I'm a little nervous here and kind of stumbling.
No, you're good.
Words,
you're good. You're good.
Yeah, it's just I do like that there was some reality in there, but it's difficult when things are so on point and so true. But I think that the film was very well put together.
Yeah, and for me as well, Anasuya, it's I rarely say this, but sometimes it's difficult being African American to me because it's the entertainment value, but then part of the film to me speaks of social consciousness. It speaks of, abuse of, by police forces, which is certainly, stop and frisk, depending on your city and your location and whatever. It's difficult for me to see it just from the entertainment perspective. And it's still a fairly common occurrence for many of us, particularly, young brothers. That's why I wrestle with it a little bit. For you, Anastasia?
Well, it's great that you say that because, my heart is beating because it is so visceral and it is like stepping into a parallel universe where it is you, but it's not you. You're there. But I think it's really important for us to be able to experience visceral things and to go through things that make us uncomfortable, because I find in this country we sugarcoat a lot of things. We Disneyfy everything. So everything has this sugar-coated way of being that makes it everything okay that is effed up. There's certain things we need to allow ourselves to feel it and to get with it, because that may be the opening to change. But the more that we're in denial, the more that we sugarcoat, the more that we don't invest in our own stories. We go to see those violent or very heavy emotional films with white cast, but we don't want to invest in it on our own, which is something I heard so often about 12 Years a Slave. I don't want to go down there. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to know. But how does that serve us to not allow it in, to not feel that, to not go there, to not open that discussion?
See, you went there, so we might as well do 12 Years a Slave next. See what you did. Yeah. See, go ahead. Jump in there.
Really quick, I think, and this is what I'm saying out of nervousness, just being on the phone right now. But I really agree with what was just mentioned. I think one thing that I'm just frustrated with is that sometimes when those type of films are shown, and this is what I meant when I first started out, and I said I would like to see more of us in a victorious, just more positive role models, positive images or victorious images. I truly agree with the utmost that our real stories should be told. The experiences that we're going through, they definitely need to be on the large screen. But I would like to see, more of us in a positive manner, because I think that, what's fed to our youth sometimes is that it's subliminally kind of sent to us that we're victims, even though I know that we have been through and we continue to go through so much. If you guys knew my story, you'd understand. I would like to see my what I've gone through on film one day, but I understand that it's very important to see those type of films, but I would like to see us in a more positive way, because I have a little girl, and this little girl, she would like to see, I know, Mom, we go through a lot of bad things, but is there anything good that we do? Is there anything positive that, we've achieved and we've accomplished? So when I take my 11, 12-year-old to the movies, to see movies like 12 Years a Slave or Mandela, she kind of cringes when I tell her, she's already heard me tell, verbally, explain these to her for a while. So it kind of makes her a little uncomfortable to actually go and see them. And, I just think it would be nice to show us on both realms.
Excellent. Mike, your reactions and comments about 12 Years a Slave.
Well, 12 Years a Slave is hands down my favorite movie of the year. I think it's the best African-American film to come out this year. When I first experienced it, I wouldn't even say saw. It took me, you're forced to be in that person's shoes. And just the writing, the direction, the performances, they were all done well. Now, Steve McQueen is a black British director who has done really unflinching portraits of people in the past, with the movie The Hunger and Shame, so which is NC-17, about a guy with a sex addiction problem, so I knew that going in that he wasn't going to pull any punches. And the reaction a lot of people had to the film was that it was too unflinching, that it was too violent. And I said, well, there's nothing you can show me in a film, a feature film, that in 2 hours, that can amount to the horror of slavery. So I was ready for it, and I think that he did it in a very sensitively told way. So I really hope that it sweeps the Oscar nominations and gets a few. It's just one of the absolute must-sees, and it's unfortunate that it's not doing even better, but it's still in theaters and people can still go out and support it.
Yeah, see, I wrestle with it. It's so much fun, and we're going to invite some callers in a little bit, but it's so much fun to hear, I guess, multiple perspectives about films. I think that one of the things that talking about movies and other aspects of culture helps me understand is that African people are a very broad demographic, age, region, ethnic identities, Caribbean, North, South, Philly, and so there's going to be few events that universalize us, generational, young people versus people 40 and up, 25 and whatever. And what I realize is that I am beginning to have less of a proclivity for pain and suffering on the screen. And I think it's I just think it's me, because it's having been through what we thought were good films from our generation, generational perspective, The Roots, Sankofa, there's probably 5 or 6 other ones, right. And I remember thinking and even, the Spike Lee, is it the Do the Right Thing, where they're burning down the restaurant and you're like there saying, yeah, and you just choked, and after a certain point, and that's how I know, I guess I'm moving on in years, because it's like, it's just something about wanting to kill people after I watched the film. And maybe that's me. Maybe that's my therapeutic issue, because I wanted to harm. I could psychologically feel like I wanted to harm people based on what I saw on the screen.
Well, there's two things about 12 Years a Slave. I mean, one, it's successful enough. I mean, I hope it doesn't mean that we're gonna see like 50 more slave movies. I don't know if that's the solution. Now, I mean, there's certainly slave narratives that deserve to be translated or whatever, but the unique thing about that film is that it's a movie about slavery that's told from the slave's perspective. There's no watering down of it. It made a third of the money of The Butler, so I don't know what that says. I'll just leave that statement as it is. But the thing is, with 12 Years a Slave, we don't want to. I don't necessarily think the solution is to have more of them, but I think it's we're at a point now where these films are being made independent of the studio system and then being picked up. So that's, even The Butler was made with outside money, and then Weinstein's came in and picked it up. So we're at a stage now where there's enough talent out there in front of the screen, writing scripts. Behind the scenes as well, that we can, if we have a passion for it, we can get our stories told. And I think that that's what this year has been reflecting, is that people are not waiting for permission to tell our stories, that they're finding ways to get them made and get them out there into theaters.
Excellent. And I want the sisters to jump in. So, and by no means am I saying not to make them. I think we're a broad demographic, and I think that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of stories that could be told. This is one. I think it's a brilliant film. I supported it with my dollars to go and see it. I recommended it. I can't remember, Mike, whether we talked about it or not. It's a great film, and I endorse it. I just think we're a very broad demographic, and I think we need to have multiple stories. We're going to take a short break. Then we're going to go back to the sisters on the line, Tasha Hill, Anasuya, Isis. And then when we first come back, Mike's going to talk about a local event that they're doing tonight, and you can go out and see a film. Stay close. We'll be right back. Back, family. You're listening strong. 900 AM WURD, on air, online, and of course, we are in the community, and we have about a half an hour left. We are delighted to be talking about films with, in, about, made by, directed by African American. So it's a broad topic. We have two guests on the line: Tasha Hill, Anasuya, Isis, and of course in studio we have Brother Mike Dennis, who wants to enlighten you about an event tonight.
Yeah, we're actually, we have a screening. We've been, for the last 5 or 6 months, we've been out in West Philly at the old United Bank building at 3750 Lancaster Avenue for second Fridays on Lancaster Avenue doing movie nights. And we started the series off with a series of documentaries that the BBC did called Soul Deep, the story of black popular music in America. And we did those for a few months in a row, and then we got interceded with some other projects that were more pressing. So we're going to finish off the series tonight with a 1-hour documentary about the history of funk, James Brown, Parliament, Funkadelic, Sly and the Family Stone, and then a really brilliant documentary that deals with hip-hop soul phenomenon of the 90s, and it centers on Mary J. Blige. So that's the admission's $5, and it's at the United Bank building, 3750 Lancaster. So we have that one coming up, and then on January 28th in West Philadelphia, we're premiering Newlyweeds, which is a Sundance film that came out last year. It didn't get a Philadelphia theatrical release, so we're hosting the Philadelphia big screen premiere of Newlyweeds, and we're going to have the filmmaker Shaka King Skype in for Q&A afterwards, and that's $10, $5 for Reelblack members.
Excellent. And one of the things I wanted to do is, because there's a large group where I found these sisters in D.C. At some point, it would be great to get some of their people with some of Mike's people and to come to your
We've got a meetup group. I mean, we're 627 strong. I'm sure some of our meetup people are listening right now. Meetup is the John. You know,
there you have
and it's
it.
a great way to connect people. I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, Meetup is a great way to connect with other people and have things to do that center on your interests. So it's meetup.com, and if you're in Philly, seek us out. And I don't know the name of their group.
In fact, we'll get them to kick some shouts at that. So before we move on, and we have a caller with a quick comment, because we have a whole list of films that we're still doing caller. So we're going to give you a really quick, it won't be a long one. I'm just letting you know now. It'll be a quick comment that you wanted to make, and then we're going to keep going. But Tasha or Anasuya, did you have a comment before we switch to the caller for a second?
You mean about our meetup group?
About any of the films, anything you wanted to add in the other set of films that we were talking about?
Oh, well, you know, it's just there's so many films that we've only touched on 2 of the films, but, you know, they have been such wonderful ones. And one of them, I'm sure Mike has seen, Mother of George, was just sublime. And I know it didn't get a wide release at all, but it was a great way of seeing the African experience, Africans in America experience, and what it's like to juggle tradition with the new.
Yeah, well, it's funny. That's one of the ones that I did homework on, and I believe it's a Nigerian couple in childbirth and her not being able to get pregnant. Is it that one? And then questioning whether or not the husband should be allowed to have either another wife, as pushed by, we would say, you know, in this country, we'd say the mother-in-law was being pushy. And I looked online at the trailer and so on, and I don't know if you aired that one, Mike, or showed that one?
Played at the film festival, and then it opened for about a week here at the Ritz Boris, and we did a field trip. A meetup group went and supported the film. Yeah, it's a brilliant film, beautifully photographed. It's from the collaboration between Bradford Young, the cinematographer, and Andrew Dosamu, the director, and it was another Sundance film. Excellent. It's not yet on DVD, but I hope they do a Blu-ray edition, because it's one of the most beautifully photographed movies in a while, and Bradford Young won an award at Sundance for cinematography of that film. So.
Oh, it was. And then, as many people know, Nigeria, etc., they produce a lot of films, like in India. I mean, they make a lot of movies that we never get to see in the States. But
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Nollywood phenomenon. I mean, this is an American production, but it's a Nigerian culture set in New York City. So, you know, I don't know if you can lump it up with the Nollywood productions, which tend to be fast and cheap.
Let me ask you about that, though. With some of the aesthetics, because just the clothing and just seeing the display of the culture, I wonder if it paralleled any ways of the storytelling of the Nollywood aspects in any way.
I think the few Nollywood films that I've seen tend to be shot on video. and are sort of like designed to be like soap operas. So once you get one story going, you can have 5 or 6 sequels to that thing with the same cast. And the reason is because there's no television in Nigeria. Video DVD is the main delivery system of entertainment. So people in Nigeria can watch a DVD, like 5 DVDs a day, the same way we would watch Maury Povich like 5 times a day. They have an insatiable hunger for their stories to be told, and it's been great. It's been a great thing for the film industry because they've centered around telling their own stories. They're not looking for outside programming to do this. But what Andrew Dosunmu is doing is a little rare because he has sizable budgets in comparison to most of them, and he's on another level of storytelling, which is a little more art film and a little less commercially driven, the way the Nollywood films tend to be written.
Excellent. Oliver, I believe on the line, you had a quick comment. Let's see if we can squeeze you in about 12 Years a Slave. Welcome to the program.
And thanks for taking my call, Dr. Cooper, and peace and love to all of you. I'm just trying to put we in perspective. That's all. I just bring up my point of view, if you don't mind, in reference to the 12 years of slavery. When I looked at 12 years of slavery last week, what I get from that is the history of our people in this country, and that's all I'm trying to bring to the table. Not the history of our race, our people in America who struggled in America and came as far as we have come up to the day. And tell that lady who said her daughter, when she go to movies, she want to see something nice, teach her daughter she's an Afro-American. Everything nice is in that. Where we started from the bottom, and now we're here.
Great. Thank you so much for that comment. We need to move on, but thank you so much. All right, let's go to something lighter then, if I may. Black Nativity. I didn't see it. Anybody?
You didn't miss anything.
Sisters, either of you see it?
I didn't.
Didn't make my list. Go ahead. And Mike, if you see his facial expression when he said that.
Lord have mercy. That was on a seer who did not see it.
It didn't. Go ahead.
I did see it.
Okay. You're the expert then.
Yeah, well, I saw it, and what I did, again, because I support all, anything that is made by, anything with black cast in it, I'm pretty much just look forward to go just to see what it's about.
Does that mean you suffer a lot sometimes? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's been a good year. This has been a good year.
My bad.
I tell you, I did. I brought my daughter to see it, and then she somewhat enjoyed it. I thought it was a little odd at times how I like musicals sometimes, so it was nice. It was it could have. I felt like it could have probably been put together a little bit better. It was interesting, but it was nice to see all black cast members, and there was a story behind it. There was I tell you this, when I left singing, the songs that were on the screen. So it was nice. It was a nice film to, a family film, a holiday film, but it could have been put together a little bit better, I think.
So let me go cultural on you for a moment. May I do that? Are we giving it a high 5, a low 4, a 3, a big 1 finger up, 5 being a high 5 being like our highest rating system as opposed to stars? Mike D just threw up deuces. Go ahead. And they were like a slow deuces, so it might have been like a 1.5, but it was 2 fingers.
Oh gosh, it was. I would say. I mean, it depends on what the audience is looking for. If you like musical theater arts, it was similar to that. There again, it's a musical, and there was a spiritual message behind it, which I thought was that was really nice. There's no killing, there was no violence, no drama. Well, there was drama in there, but it was a family film. It had a message, and it was a spiritual message, and I would give it 4. I'd give it 4 fingers or deuces.
Wow. Okay.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know.
Oh wow.
You guys,
okay. You didn't sound like you were getting closer.
No, it sounded like it sounded like the blind date that you're trying to explain. Like he's a nice guy, though. You know what I mean? And then there was a lot of things around.
Yeah, I
don't
need to
know.
send you some of my films to get some critic reviews.
It wasn't what I expected when I went in. I myself was a little disappointed. I heard the advertisements before Black Nativity, and they read off all the cast members, and I probably should have done my research a little bit more. So I myself was disappointed, but it is a good movie to, for family members to take.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, around the same time that Black Nativity came out, Best Man Holiday came out.
I did not see it.
You didn't see that one?
Best Man Holiday.
Okay, I was about to say we could compare the two.
Yeah, but go with Best Man Holiday. Go ahead.
To me, I thought that was the better holiday film. Like I think Preacher's Wife is the modern day like classic Black Christmas movie.
I heard that there was I just kind of get tired of the same little dramas that we do, and that's what I was mentioning earlier. I would like to see us in a, we're kind of, sometimes we get stuck in the same little pattern of people, and that's, to me, I just didn't find it interesting to go and see that movie, because I just felt like I saw the last one, I saw the first one, and
Yeah,
okay.
but were you the one talking about the importance of black middle class depiction? I mean, that's as bumpy as you get.
Right,
Best Man
but
Holiday.
that one had, I can't judge a movie that I didn't see. I'm
sorry.
just assuming that there was some sex scandal in there and the drama. But I heard good things about it, so I was like, I'd rather not go see it. Though.
Wow, I don't want to turn this into like a men versus the women competition, but I saw it. It was
anything yet.
It was great. It was great on the big screen. Go ahead.
Go see it.
As far as in your quest to have a film that's uplifting and positive and affirming, I don't think you can top it for the Best Man Holiday for that, because it did offer a lot of light and a lot of hope and a lot of love, and it wasn't stereotypical, and it wasn't necessarily even a continuation from from Best Man. I thought that the 12 years off made them very different people. Well, mostly, some of them weren't. But I loved how they threw in the whole issue of infertility, how they dealt with the issue of hitting a high in your career and then losing it. I loved a lot of the different issues they were dealing with in the different characters, and the way that they have grown and what they were offering each other in times of great challenge. I love that film. I loved it. It just made my heart sing.
It's high on my list. We have to take another break, but just in terms of the aesthetics, the beautiful skin tones of the men and women, the very characters, I can't, being a heterosexual male, I didn't get into the eye candy part of the brothers, but I'm sure if the sisters like that part of it. But there was a deeper story, and I think it was better. One of the few sequels, if you will, that was probably better, I think, than the first one, and I certainly enjoyed the first one back in the day.
First one. And I really don't consider it a sequel, so I don't think it's fair to say it was a sequel, but if we were to call it that, I'd take this one over the first one in a minute, and I love the first one.
Well, I'm encouraged now. I'm inspired to go and see it, but I do think that you guys should see the Black Nativity, because what I did like about that movie is there is a spiritual meaning. Jennifer Hudson is in that movie, correct?
Yeah. We're going to take a brief commercial break, but I guarantee you I will see it, because I can get it for $1.20 at some little box thing that distributes the film. So for $1.20, I might even rate it as a very good film. So stay close. We're going to take a pause for the cause. We are talking about films for another 15 minutes. Ladies, be ready. Mike, be ready, because our time is running out. Make sure you have on your lips a film that you want to talk about. Stay close. We're taking a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back, family. It's 5 minutes after the hour, and time goes quickly when you're having fun. So we're going to go to the ladies first. Let me just find out if we had to ask you, Tasha, if there's a movie that we haven't talked about that you wanted to talk about, which one would that be?
What is the movie I just... Oh, well, actually, I didn't see it in the film, but I did like Winnie Mandela.
You liked Winnie Mandela. It's not on didn't make it on my short list. I'm sure Mike is.
Well, I mean, compared to the other film, it just doesn't have the same budget or whatever.
Well,
but it's interesting.
Yeah, the reason I liked it is that obviously I went to see Mandela first, and I honestly did not know much about Winnie. So when I saw Winnie Mandela, I was like, wow, I just have like I didn't know that she had gone through. It just makes it so real, to see how hard we've had to go through, some of our struggles. So it was just really rewarding to see. I really appreciated that movie.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that's one that got another limited theatrical release. I think it played in New York and Los Angeles. Bob Johnson's company put it out here, and T.D. Jakes presented it. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting film. I mean, I think the Idris Elba treatment. Obviously, they had a $30 million budget. I think, they probably had $2 million to tell Winnie's story. So I would say see the original first, but Winnie Mandela is on Netflix for those who have it, so it's definitely worth checking out. I would agree.
Excellent. Anasuya?
Well, Mother of George is definitely one I wanted us to see. I did love the small. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name about the two boys.
Inevitable Defeat of Mr. and Pete.
I have it listed here as one
Wonderful.
to talk about. Yeah.
Film. I hope people can get to see it. I don't even know. It's a beautiful film, and these two boys just will steal your heart. It's just a great story, and I did like Mandela. I do have things that I didn't like about it, but I do know for the sake of time and squeezing a big fat life into 2 hours, they did amazing choices on what part of the story they did tell, and I did love the power of their love, and I did like what they were able to capture in the evolution of Winnie's political activism.
What didn't you like about it? Just name something.
Well, just like, for example, the most of his life was in prison, and the part that they didn't deal with at all is how they kept sane, how they didn't succumb to anger and bitterness, and how they turned it into a university for all of those other political prisoners that were sent there. They turned it into a training ground, preparing for the day when they would take over and lead the country. So they were training them on how to run a country, how to run things. And that's a key part of why this was so successful. Another thing that I didn't appreciate is that when they started to take him out to start building the consensus and building the exit strategy for him to come out of prison and make the transition, he included the other brothers that were in there with him. And he was very clear that I am not going to get free until we all go free. I'm not leaving without them. And it looks like he left them behind in there, and he didn't. So, I mean, those are small things, but it's historically important.
Excellent. Your thoughts about the film?
Well, I mean, I didn't know that much about Nelson Mandela going into the film, so I really appreciate the big treatment. Like, the first thing that blew me away was just I mean, South African production, their biggest film that they've ever done, and they really did a great job telling the story. I think Idris was fantastic. He's a little big. He's like Marvel presents Nelson Mandela. He looks like he could kick anybody's behind at any moment. But I like the nuances, and I thought that Naomi Harris, the woman that played Winnie, was really, really powerful. So.
Oscar-worthy? Come on, people. Oscar-worthy buzz on any of these portrayals? Oh, that's a no, Mike.
Well, I mean, Oscar-worthy,
film, lead actor, supporting.
I would just give it to, I would like to see 12 Years a Slave get recognition more so. But if it came into the conversation, I think I'd be fine with it.
Ladies, Oscar-worthy?
I think Lupita ought to get it for Best Supporting Actress. Lupita from 12 Years a Slave was so phenomenal as Patsy. I do think I'm torn between Michael Jordan getting and Chiwetel getting it for the lead male. They both just blew me away in very different ways. And I did love Oprah in The Butler. I did love what she was able to bring.
Oscar-worthy, though? Lady, really?
I know. I'm working on it.
Ooh.
Lupita for sure.
Oh, because I felt, and even with the lead character whose name just went out of my mind for The Butler, the main character, I think, now, I don't want to come across as a hater, but I think that both of their characters may have passed their age window to play the earlier years. Makeup is a beautiful thing, but I'm not sure. They play their parts well, but I'm just wondering if it would have been better to give a younger actors a shot, because like I can't play a 20-year-old anymore. Right. Maybe I couldn't when I was 20. So you begin to lose a little bit of the integrity when you have a long, kind of a window. I still think the technology is better for making young people old and vice versa, unless you do something electronic.
Right. Yeah. It was a stretch, and then the son, he may have been a little too old, or to be playing like a 17-year-old. I wasn't quite buying that, but it's. Yeah, I can't. Lee Daniels is a Philly homegrown talent. He's done some amazing things in Hollywood. The Butler is by far the biggest African American film that we've seen in years. By a black filmmaker. So I mean, obviously somebody likes it.
Yoelo. I did love what he did with it as the son.
It was good. I mean, we've had this conversation already. I'll say, if it was Mike D, it's Lee Daniels the Butler. If it was Mike D's the Butler, then the Butler wouldn't have made it past the South, because after he saw his parents get killed or his dad get shot, he would have figured out a way to poison all those white people on that plantation. And then he would have been lynched, and the movie would have been over. He would have never got a chance to serve 8 presidents.
Come on, it was a double day. The mother got raped and the father got shot. I mean, what a whammy.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were going to say? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I do believe that 12 Years Slave I would definitely say that 12 Years Slave should get an Oscar. But I wanted to also mention, because I know I remember when I said I wanted to see more positive. What I mean by that also is, I'm so sorry I can't remember the other young lady's name, but Anasulia. So this was great when you just mentioned about what you didn't like about Mandela, and this is the point that I'm really trying to make. I would like to see more of who we are, meaning our mental strength, our strategies, what really keeps us going. And I think I'm so glad that she mentioned that, because it was kind of hard for me to find the words and try to get it out, but that's exactly what I mean. When I take my child to see these movies, of course there's not really a big problem with seeing the movies, but we need to see how we victored, not just like physically, but what kept us strong. Like in the movie Winnie Mandela, there was a small part in there where Nelson Mandela sent her it was sent just a word of encouragement. That is like, when you mention that, it's like, this is what I was trying to say. I would love to see us. That's what I mean by a more victorious way. We have overcome a lot of things, but it's not just physical. And I think sometimes when we're viewed just out and about in the world, that's what they think, is that our mental strength is not that strong, and we're just strong physically. So it's beautiful. That's what I'm trying to say, is I would like to see how we've overcome mentally a lot of our obstacles.
Excellent. And Mike, we're running out of time, but your film?
Well, I would just say that this year that just passed, as we come into the beginning of 2014, the emergence of Kevin Hart as a major Hollywood box office star, I think is the most interesting thing that I'll take away. There have been great movies that came out, like Love was a very interesting film, A Haunted House, lots of things that we didn't mention, Baggage Claim. So it's not all just the Oscar caliber dark dramas or things like that. I think there is some balance that you can see, but I'm really looking forward to the next 2 or 3 months, because Kevin, in addition to having his concert film Let Me Explain come out last year, he also has the Ride Along with Ice Cube coming out next Friday. Mm-hmm. And then next month, for Valentine's Day, he's got another movie, About Last Night, which is a remake of the old, Rob Lowe film from the 80s. So I think keep an eye on him. He's doing some really great work right now, and hopefully people will go out and support him, and so he can continue.
Excellent. We've gotten several calls, ladies, about contact information for yourself, email, or anything you care to share for the listeners. Yeah, I know. That's radio. People have asked about how they can contact you, because
I'm on Facebook. My email is the thill26@hotmail.com or YEASHA26 at Yahoo, and they're both Facebook. You can find me on Facebook.
Okay, and for you, Anasulia?
It's very easy, but it's one word that's very long. Ambassador Anasuya. Ambassador Anasuya at Gmail. So I'll spell Anasuya, because that's the trickiest thing. ANASUYA. Ambassador, ANASUYA @gmail. And you can find me, Anasuya Isis, on Facebook as well.
Excellent. Now, here's a deal that I want to make with the two of you and, of course, Mike D and myself. I want to do this again in a month-ish or so with you all, and we're going to talk about films. There'll be other films with Black cast members and so on. Mike watches all of them or knows about all of them or brings us all of them, so he's always easy. I'm going to invite you back, and, of course, we try to get Mike on as much as we can.
That'd be great. 7 o'clock tonight.
Excellent. I'm going to get Mike to go through that for the listeners, but thank the both of you so much. So I want you back on again. So when you see email from me, that's what I want again. So thank you so much. Hope to meet you in person sometime.
We will do that. And Mike, I have to come up to one of your parties, because I tell you, the listing of films you have coming up in the next 2 weeks makes me want to drive up from D.C. So
it's really close.
Oh,
Really
yeah,
close.
come on, yeah.
I'm going to come up and see you guys and do it, because that sounds like a ball.
Excellent, excellent. Mike, give the final announcement of your program for this evening, location, et cetera, et cetera.
Tonight at 7 o'clock at the United Bank Building, which is on the corner of 38th and Lancaster. We are celebrating Second Fridays there with the screening of Soul Deep, the story of Black popular music. And we're showing two of the segments, one on the history of funk and one on the New Jack Swing, hip-hop, R&B with Mary J. Blige. And that's at 7 o'clock p.m., and the admission is $5.
Only $5.
And you get refreshments. So if you get there early enough, you'll get some free candy and popcorn and stuff.
Excellent. Mike always has great groups coming out. So I want to thank all of you, you two ladies in D.C., where I lived for a while, and Mike, of course, holding it down in Philly. You can go to his website, Reelblack, ReelBlack.com. It's always a pleasure, Mike, having you in studio. And for the sisters, we're going to do this again. We're going to take a brief pause for the cause. We have our next guest on the line. We will introduce that topic on the other side. Stay close.
What a traffic afternoon. It is jammed everywhere in the scattered drizzle. And